Mary Jane?
Congressman, I want to thank you for what you have done in the past. Number one, development in the state of Alaska. In the interior, the villages, and throughout all Alaska, we are almost like a third world country at this moment. I'm concerned, and I'm concerned about time. Maybe it's because I'm old.
No, you're mature.
I am. But it's thank you for what you've been doing in the past, and we'll support you all the way. We need it done.
Mary Jane, the biggest challenge we have in the bush, and everybody knows what it is right now, education, but more than that. Remember about my deal about bringing people back? We've got to get the price of fuel down. You know, I've lost, first time I think in history in Fort Yukon, we lost 20 people this year and moved out. It's always had 600, we're about 580, 590 now. Because of the $5.50 heating oil. And remember, regardless of what Al Gore said, it was colder than the devil this year. I mean, keep that in mind. So we've got to get a cheaper source of energy. You know, we build a gas pipeline, I hope we do this. We've got to make sure on that gas pipeline have the ability to bleed that line, to liquefy gas and ship it down the Yukon and across the Kuskokwim area and up the Yukon as possible economically to do that. Then we have to look at other sources of energy. Not just gas, but other sources of energy. And we have not done that. We're always locked into diesel fuel. So that's one of our biggest challenges to keep people in the bush. Doc?
Thanks, Congressman. You hit on a subject which is the global warming and the recent Supreme Court decision that carbon dioxide is part of the greenhouse gas causing climate change. Does Congress anticipate any type of legislation which would halt the extreme bleeding that would occur in the United States if we go along with some of the things that are on the agenda as a result of that Supreme Court decision?
You bring up a very valid point, because most of what has occurred, I call it the lemmings to the sea, hysteria, misinformation program. And I've been called a flatlander, by the way, my friends, because I don't believe what Al Gore said. I've been saying this for 5 years. I do a little work with the institute out here, which has good information. In fact, this doctor, I can't think of the deputy doctor, that withdrew from the UN study group because they wouldn't listen to me. We've got 1 degree colder since 1980 in Alaska. Not 1 degree warmer. I don't listen to them. That's what the media says. But think where they bought this from. In 1965, the same cadre of scientists said that we'd reached the zenith of the ability to take and produce food for the multitudes, and we were going to have mass starvation. Now, check it out. Get your computer working. Check it out. That's what was said by the scientists. 1965. Let me finish. That was the okay. Then 1975 comes along, and if you'll read the record, then we were going to have an ice age time, an ice age, in 1975. Now, in 2007, Al Gore says we're all going to roast in hell because of the global warming. And I'm saying, wait a minute, if that's the case, then is man the influencing factor of this? And if we do what Nancy Pelosi wants to do, then our standard of living drops dramatically. Everybody says, well, we have to do that to save the world. Okay, I'll listen to that. But right now, China is building 1 new coal-fired power plant every week. 600 by the year 2020. And they're not doing that for the fun of it. Yet they tell you it's global. They say it's global. If we are the contributors as humanity, then we should, in fact, make sure everybody doesn't emit any type of emissions into the air. To have me and you and the future generations say, oh no, we're going to have to decrease our capability, ride bicycles, and do that type of thing to save the globe. In the meantime, China's competing against us. Yes, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to make a comment. When I was in the legislature, I was fortunate enough to go to 3 very high-level climate symposiums, and the scientific community was somewhat divided about the climate change itself, but there was no unanimity among any of them on the cause of that climate change. And the reason I ask the question is because what can be done in policy? The carbon dioxide is not an noxious gas. We're not even at the optimal level, Congress. For those of you who don't know, we're at 750 parts per million of carbon dioxide, the optimal amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere is from 1,000 to 1,200 parts per million. We're 250 parts per million below the optimum amount, and they're still crying about carbon dioxide. What can you do about it?
You can't do anything about it. And the second thing is the Congress itself. The Congress itself will do nothing but make show and blow. I'm a radical show and blow. This is one thing I'm going to get that sit down, but you have to keep in mind. Just think about this. Where did the oil come from Prudhoe Bay? 750 miles away from the North Pole. What's oil made from? Vegetation and decay and compression. 17 billion barrels. Boy, it was hot up there one of those times. Now the second thing that bothers me a little bit, I was down in New Mexico about 10 years ago, and I was looking over gorges, and this gentleman with me said, you know, Congressman, that was done by ice. I said, ice in New Mexico? He said, there was 287 foot of ice here. I never asked what the ice got, how it got there, but it was melted all the way back to the North Pole before we had underarm deodorant. Melted all the way back before man was here. Then you remember in Iceland we used to have vineyards. In England they had big wineries. It was warm. We have to stop thinking that everything is wrong or right is the result of what we do. How arrogant can that be? Remember I said wrong or right. This globe is constantly changing. We had 5 volcanoes, and in 1 year you'd have all the particulate amount and gases of the air than everything man has ever done for the last 100 years. Now, it's not going to happen. It says it's not going to happen. We have 2 in Alaska. I mean, go through this. Just think about it a moment. And I go back to the Alaskan Institute up here, the Arctic Institute. We've got good professors right here in this town. Good professors. Go talk to them. Ask what they see. And you'll be surprised. They withdrew from that UN study group. By the way, the report has nothing to do with what came out with the summary. That was done by a bunch of politicians. But go ask them. People live in Alaska. And by the way, you can't grow any crops in ice. You can't grow any food in ice. You have to have a warmer climate. And if you don't think I'm right in this, try living off of $5.50 a gallon for heating oil in the north. That's our big challenge. Yes, sir.
If all of your days are good, when do you feel the pain of our fallen troops?
I feel the pain every time one falls, but I know they're proud of what they've done. I want to thank you all. Appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Do you feel he answered your question at all, or just put you off?
I haven't found out yet. I'm thinking about it. Generally that means no, but I've been wrong from time to time.
Well, I thank you for asking the question.
Thanks, it's sweet of you.
We love beating the pieces of piano over there. Ari, where have you been back there listening to my nonsense? I didn't know that. Are you just getting that to make such a copious note? You never know. I was trying to be careful. Oh, that's okay too.
Hey, you trimmed your beard.
A little bit.
I'm glad you cut that goat to me.
You know that's why I did it. Have you ever heard the story? I was leaving the house.
Anything else to say about his kind of curt response?
Well, it seems like love will prevail, but I don't know when.
Do you think Don Young will ever be accused of war crimes because he's complicit with the actions that happened?
No.